Cool. There we go.
So, as many of you might know, I'm not the biggest car person in the world. However, I have owned this car for about 3 years now, at a whopping 100,000 miles. So I figured this would probably be as good a time as any to make my full review. So let's get it.
Whiskers don't make noise when they start up, just so you know.
So with this review, I'm gonna separate it into 4 parts. Battery, build, performance, and of course the final conclusion. You know, like a tech video. But with that, let's start with the battery. Gotta say, this has to be the most asked question amongst the boomer community. What's your range like, and how do you charge it? Well, this is a supercharger. And just about the best compliment that I can give Tesla is just how reliable this charging network is. All right, so onboard navigation. This is like the other 50% of a good, successful charging network, is being able to see available chargers in your car, as well as occupied chargers, as well as out of order chargers, which on that note, Tesla is very, very good at keeping all of their chargers up and running. See, the experience with Electrify America using a Mach-E has really made me appreciate this whole entire Tesla supercharging world even more.
I'm really worried.
Because with Electrify America, which is probably the best option if you don't own a Tesla and you own another EV, A, they are few and far between, and B, when you do find one, a lot of the time they're broken. Anyways, back to Tesla supercharging. The one thing you should know is you're gonna be hearing the lingo of V2 and V3 supercharging. V3 is a lot faster than V2. V2 charges at 150 kilowatts max, whereas V3 is 250. Both are very, very fast, don't get me wrong, but obviously go for a V3 if there's one around. Now you know this by tapping the charger and seeing the reading. When it says 150, V2, when you see 250, it's V3. But on most longer trips, I try to hit one of these for like 15 or 20 minutes. It's about $7 to say $15 per session. But then there's also destination charging, which is overnight charging. Maybe if you have a house, install one. If there's a local garage that has one, maybe use that. It's a nice thing to have to wake up every morning to a full charge, but by no means is it a must-need thing, as only supercharging is completely fine. I did it there for about a year and a half or so. Didn't really have any major complaints. Okay, so next up, let's talk about range. Estimated mileage. It is a thing that gets confused with battery degradation constantly. So the thing with Teslas is the displayed mileage adapts to your driving style. So if you drive like a granny, obviously your displayed mileage will be higher. And if you drive in New Jersey, it's going to be displayed lower. So 3 years ago when I got the car, my 90% charge, which is the daily recommended amount of charge, was 272 miles. About 2 or 3 weeks later, it was already reading at like 260 miles. But now my range reads around 230 to 245 miles on that same 90% charge. So it has adapted to my driving style to reflect the amount of range that I can accurately achieve the way I drive. But this question of battery degradation, I don't really see it that way. I more so view it as how much land I was able to cover in year 1 versus now in year 3. And basically in that respect, it has not changed really at all, at least noticeably. Now, where you will experience a change in mileage is with more extreme climates. This goes for hotter environments as well as much colder, more specifically much colder. But also position that next to using your climate a lot, heat. That's also going to affect your range quite a lot. Seemingly even with the new heat pump in the 2021, 2022 Model 3s and Ys, it's still affecting your range quite significantly when you turn on the heat. But especially for those longer drives in the wintertime, my recommendation is to try and use the heat as little as possible and instead opt for the seat heaters, which affects your battery quite a lot less.
Ooh. This brings us to our next section, build. All right, so I'd say the first thing to know with build or design is definitely the dash and the AC vent. Now this is what I consider to be more so form over function, if you will. I find that the actual functionality of it, it's not exactly there. Now while it looks great and rather futuristic for whatever that's worth, I find it just kind of sprays air at you. It doesn't really direction it all that well. You see, the old S and X used to have just your average do-it-yourself old school vent, and there was really nothing wrong with that. It worked well, it did its job. But now, all of a sudden, all of the Teslas have gone to this seamless bar-style vent design that's all controlled through the screen. Again, yeah, super futuristic, looks great. Not that functional, though. But I do think that the Model 3 factor, if you will forever be this massive singular tablet in the middle of the dash. See, this is your everything. This is your info, this is the way you interact with your car, this is your odometer, this is everything. See, I found that only after like a couple of weeks, I totally got used to this and this way of driving. Everything you need most is pretty much front and center, and everything else is just kind of a few taps away. But there's an openness to this. It just kind of feels like you, a steering wheel, and a massive windshield. Like all of the technology just kind of melts away after driving this car for a little bit. And that's kind of the beauty of the Model 3. It just is a pleasure to drive. Now on that topic of openness, I also find that this white interior, while it may look rather risky, it does really open up this car. I also find the durability of this white interior to be surprising. But I mean, other than that, there's like a litany of smaller issues with this car, like the Prindle cover starting to pop up every once in a while, no matter how many times I try to push it down.
Would you like am or fin?
Or even like a persistent trunk leak that has been present since day one that Tesla just hasn't really been able to fix fully. But those are really the only like quality control issues, if you even want to consider it that. But mind you, I did get this car at like peak Model 3 production hell. Comparing this car to modern Model 3s in 2021, 2022, seeing that difference of build quality is fascinating. Like they're almost different cars at this point. Not to say that this is a badly made vehicle, because I love this vehicle, but seeing how far Tesla's come in the production of the Model 3 is inspiring. Hi, have you ever been in the forest and thought, gee, I wish my car smelled like this? Well, do I have the product for you? Wood has never smelled so good in your crevasse. Stick a Scentwedge in your crack this year.
Go on their website and look for various smells like Valencia, Big Sur, or the North Pole, or my personal favorite, reaching the summit by sticking some wood in your rear. You can't make this shit up.
Say no to those dangly, ugly trees. Say no
to drugs.
Say yes to Scentwedge. Buy some wood today. I did want to bring up Tesla service for a sec, because that's another thing that has wildly improved since the early days of owning my car. Getting like the smaller things dealt with is honestly a breeze. I also find the experience of using the app and identifying issues and scheduling service to be incredibly intuitive. Basically, just scroll down to service And from here, you'll be able to input your issues, identify your problems, and also submit photos if it applies to your issue. But after that point, you'll be met with options on location to take your car, as well as time slots. Now, the one downside with Tesla service centers is sometimes it is kind of hard to get an appointment in a timely fashion, especially if your issue is more urgent. It can be kind of an issue. But regardless, the service that you actually get is great, and to me, that's what matters. Now, there is also mobile service, which is basically the same exact process, but instead they send out a Tesla car to meet you and your car wherever you happen to be, and they correct certain issues that they can do on the fly. But this is a rather unique experience with Tesla service, one that you certainly don't get with other dealerships. So with that, it really does streamline communication.
Dealers ain't shit, will never be shit.
Now, unfortunately, the other side of this is collision and insurance, because Tesla service centers, with the exception of like a few, don't deal with collision-based repairs. Largely, they refer you to third-party Tesla certified body shops, because in order to get Tesla parts, you have to be Tesla certified as a body shop. And then comes insurance, and insurance dealing with Tesla is like Elon dealing with taxes. There's enough to talk about here for a completely separate video, but just be prepared to tear your hair out if, God forbid, you get into a bigger collision, because largely you'll just be in between three very large whiny companies, being Tesla, a body shop, and your insurance company, all just not wanting to work together. Let's talk performance. This is a very fun and comfortable car to drive or be driven in. I still find myself to be very excited every single time I'm behind the wheel of this car. Now, this is a 2018 dual motor, acceleration boosted Model 3 with D-aero capped wheels, mostly because you don't really need aero caps once you're going over 65. It's kind of meaningless. But I absolutely love driving this car, and especially for those longer trips, autopilot. Autopilot is just wonderful. I kind of consider it a game changer, so much so that I really don't think I could go back to doing just the same amount of driving that I still do and used to do before without autopilot. Now, what I will complain about is that at around like the 2.5, 3 year mark, I have had some like sensor-based issues. So autopilot will randomly just freak out and disengage. This is like a once every month kind of thing, so it's just kind of random. But basically it'll force me to take hold of the car. Autopilot will be disabled for the rest of the trip. Most of the time it's restored the next trip, but it's just a weird thing that happens every once in a while. And also my cameras just cut out weirdly, like all the time. I'll just be like trying to back up using the backup cameras or the side cameras, and they'll just be completely black and loading. But largely with the autopilot issue, it comes up with an error like this. I've told Tesla about it, and largely they've kind of urged me to not do anything about it, as out of warranty, the cost of fixing the part required would be pretty costly. But again, it's just like a random occurrence kind of thing. Rest of the time, it's smooth sailing. But I do want to switch gears to arguably one of my favorite, if not my favorite thing about this car, and that is software, and more specifically, upgrades. So like a smartphone, this car updates. It has software updates. Basically, every time you update a Tesla, it gives you the latest and greatest that Tesla has to offer. So largely outside of like your hardware just being a little bit different, you get all the same features as modern Model 3s right off the factory floor. But it's really kind of a cool thing that like your 3-year-old car is all of a sudden new again every single time Tesla pushes a software update for your vehicle. But anyways, I should maybe get back in the front, so. Cool. It's lucky that there's a camera case just sitting here already. Look at that. Serendipity. But listen, here's the conclusion. This is a 3-year-old car. And even just saying that, this does not feel like a 3-year-old car. And honestly, sadly, I'll say I'm gonna miss this. See, the thing I want to end on here is like the landscape today is very different than what it was 3 years ago. Like today we have contenders like the ID4, the Polestar, the Mach-E. The list is growing seemingly by the week. However, with everything considered, charging network, design, build, battery, everything, I would still go back to the Model 3 any day. And if it weren't for the expense of fixing this car out of warranty and seemingly just how much I drive, I would still drive this car for yet another 3 years. See, this is really the full package, my friends. The fact that this type of future is becoming more and more accessible and more practical to average buyers is truly wonderful to watch. But with that, as for my next car, well, you'll just have to wait to find that one out. But until then, thanks for watching.